What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick
Miller,
and we have an album review for you, and one that we definitely wanted to go over because we've both been longtime fans. In fact, we went over their last one on the channel, and yeah, they're not necessarily the usual stuff that we cover, but fuck it, I like this band still. So we're gonna go over the latest offering from Sevendust, Truth Killer. This comes out on the 28th of July on Napalm Records. This band formed in Atlanta, Georgia in 1994, originally as Crawl Space. If you actually have the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, you can actually have a version of a Crawl Space song, which ended up popping up on their first album, which came out in 1997, and that's pretty much where my fandom starts.
Yeah, mine was around 98, I think. It was just a little bit after that album started, but they were right there with my transition into heavier stuff with, that stemmed into Sepultura and Morbid Angel eventually, but
I mean, you gotta get
Sevendust was there.
Yeah, I got a good heavy sort of lead in, the big bottom heavy guitars and all that. This is their 14th album overall, and they're kind of alt metal, you can call them new metal,
I don't know, groovy. They're kind of their own sound,
hard rock.
Really. Yeah,
it's one of those bands where they're kind of like too heavy for some of the hard rock fans, like, whoa, hold on, it's getting a little too aggressive. And then for like, the rabid metal fans are like, no, this is some fucking poser horse shit. Why the fuck they singing? This is bullshit.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like them and why they have their own niche and their own sound. If you hear a song, oh, this is Sevendust. Yeah, and that's what makes a band awesome, I think. And they kind of have carved that out throughout 14 albums, led by Lejean, of course, which vocals are killer on this album.
Vocals have always been such a huge part of this band. They are very vocally driven, especially when it comes down to like giant choruses, pre-choruses, vocal harmonies. Not only Lejean Witherspoon, but you also have Clint Lowry and John Connolly and Morgan Rose, who also supplies some heavier vocals every now and then. That has been kind of the formula for years, and it's worked. Like, Sevendust is to like hard rock slash like new metal, whatever the hell you want to call them, alt metal, as to like what Cannibal Corpse is to death metal. Consistent. There may not be a lot of variety between the albums, but you kind of just pick up a Sevendust album knowing full well what you're going to get, with maybe some slight variations on it.
Yeah, and some surprises here and there, which this album does. They kind of change their formula a little bit in some of the songs. Like the opening track, it's very pop, kind of R&B driven right at the open, which is not totally uncommon for them, but the way this was executed is kind of uncommon for them.
Yeah.
But then most of the song carries without anybody else but Lejean, seemingly, and electronic stuff. And at the very end, the band finally comes in. You hear Morgan on his drum set, and it really does a nice job of like building up, but very atypical kind of even for Sevendust, while still sounding like Sevendust.
Yeah, to open with something like that is kind of atypical because generally you think Sevendust is going to open with a big rocker, and generally they do. This one, I kind of got echoes of the last Slipknot album where that first track was just kind of a what the fuck moment. But this one surprisingly works, and namely it's because of Lejean's vocals. They're very passionate, kind of sultry, raspy. He just croons fucking beautifully. And the music behind it, it's moody. It matches his vocals really well. It's almost kind of like a R&B meets Depeche Mode sort of thing. And it does lead into a giant crescendo at the end when they start rocking, and then you start getting into like the heavier stuff and the stuff that you really expect from them. Songs like Sick Mouth and Holy Water kind of just showcase what Sevendust has been doing for years. They are strong rockers, they are single driven, and I mean, honestly, any song on here could be considered a single because they are all built around giant choruses and pre-choruses. Actually, Sevendust does pre-choruses a lot better than most bands, because most bands don't really bother with it, but Sevendust knows how to do it.
Yeah, they really see that part as like a big kind of build-up into this epic thing, which they do really well, but almost to a kind of a this is how you do it mentality. Some of this in the middle kind of feels that way a little bit. Like, okay, I've kind of heard this Sevendust song before, but I kind of dig the other version a little bit better. Like the two you mentioned, but then you have like absolute just crushing ones like No Revolution, it's got this frantic electronic thing going on, and then the riff really hits, and you're just like, oh my god, fuck yeah, this is like the Sevendust I really dig. Probably because it's leaning more toward the metal djenti kind of thing, which I'm sign me up for any day with Sevendust.
The syncopated rhythms, the bottom heavy down-tuned guitars, like when they do heavy, they do it well, and they still do it within the formula. They still know how to throw like a big vocal hook on there, and then when they decide to get that next step heavier, that's where Morgan comes in and delivers some harsher vocals, which his harsh vocals in here are a little bit different. Like he does more low growls, especially in like the front half of the album on like Truth Killer, the title track. There's some solid, like deeper growls. Like I'm not talking like flat out like death metal or anything like that, but they're like deeper growls and they have a little bit more punch to them. And then the rest of the time he's got those high shrieks that, you know, like almost like a kind of a cue that something heavier is coming.
Yeah, like the here you go, 1, 2, 3, let's go. But yeah, it's usually or something like that, you know.
And then right into a just, you know, staggering fucking awesome groove, which that is what Morgan Rose does. He is a in the pocket drummer that has some unique flavors to his style, and that is one of those things that is kind of like an anchor point with this band is groove, but like fun off-time rhythms, breakdowns, and just like, you know, cool smatterings of drum work that is just kind of 100% him.
Yeah, and that's really what has carried my love for the band. When I first heard the band, it was the guitars, the riffs, and, you know, Terminator and Lejeune. And then I really started listening to Morgan's work on the drums and becoming more invested in drums and learning them, and then really listening to what he played. He's a pocket drummer, but if you really listen to what he's doing, everything makes sense and it builds everything up, and all the heavy parts, all the djenti parts or whatever are just accented that much more by what he's doing. And he does a good job of, like, it's the bass line to the riff, so he drags his patterns out to kind of fit in this weird way that really carries the low end of the riff, the really dun dum ba bum boom bra da 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 ba 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 boom. You know,
you can definitely hear that on like Love and Hate. Love and Hate has these giant bottom heavy chugs, and he is accenting them. And again, this is another one where it has like kind of this more unique riff in terms of like getting outside of the more straightforward rock formula that Sevendust definitely does, and I think they do well. Granted, it does get a little bit old occasionally, but songs like that, there's like a little bit like kind of different energy. Like, it's kind of a big breakdown with a soaring vocal pattern on top of it. And I like the more straightforward heavy side, like Fence, the closing track, which was the first single on here and has an absolutely awesome claymation video, is just kind of a straightforward, heavy, energetic song. It's a little bit more up-tempo. A lot of this kind of hangs in that, straightforward, like 4/4 time, head-bangable groove. It's home. It's home to a lot of fucking metalheads. We love banging along with that shit. But I think where they kind of get a little bit outside of the same song structure but still know how to deliver that giant hook are songs like Messenger and Leave Hell Behind. These songs are, I don't know, just like a little bit bigger. They kind of get outside of just the straightforward rock, heavy metal, whatever you want to call them, like formula that they have. I mean, it's still very present, but there are movements that are switched around a little bit. There are, elements where they isolate Lejeune's vocals for electronic flavor, and some of the choruses on here are absolutely gigantic, namely Messenger. Messenger kind of just brings it home with this giant, like, single chord strummed, Lejeune singing his fucking dick off, right over him, and it's just anthemic. It's powerful. That's, another thing that I come back to Sevendust for. Like, I love big vocal hooks, and this band does it exceedingly well.
And I liked Messenger a little bit better than Leave Hell Behind, because I thought the chorus in that, like the vocal patterns, like the kind of thing he was doing with that, didn't flow well for me. He's done better choruses in my opinion, but the sound and everything was there. So it's kind of odd that we feel opposite on that. I think maybe because I'm looking for the heavy Sevendust.
Yeah. Well, this album, of course, is not without its issues. One of my main issues on here, and it's kind of the lesser of the issues, is this album is, I would say, a little bit more electronic. Like, I'm not saying like this is just like a straight up like Daft Punk album or something like that. No. It's not that, but the electronic elements seem to be more prevalent. Like, it was noticeable right away with the opening track, I Might Let the Devil Win. If the devil was a synth, you let it win. But there's a lot of like electronic soundscapes kind of blended with all the guitar effects, because this band is really known for using a litany of different guitar effects. But it kind of gets to be a bit much, especially since I think all but 2 tracks in here start off with like a more electronic lead-in, and they all kind of start sounding stock at a certain point, like Superficial Drug. This is another one where I'd say it's kind of a, by the numbers Sevendust single. There's a couple on here, like Everything, but Superficial Drug was one that stood out because the opening to it sounded exactly like 4 or 5 Linkin Park songs.
Yeah. And it's really because of that sample.
It's the piano. But... It's, when you hear it, you'll instantly think of, God, what was the name of that fucking song?
Who cares?
Oh, fucking who cares. But yeah, it sounds, again, like a stock Linkin Park sample. And the 2 styles are kind of similar. Like, Sevendust and Linkin Park share some stuff in common. I will definitely say that. But it just doesn't really work. And as much as I really like Messenger, like the opening to that just felt like another stock, electronic thing. It didn't even fit the first verse, really. Like, it could have just opened up with that first verse. It was really solid, really strong. You didn't need the lead in. Yeah,
that Messenger, the second part really of that song is really like, okay, this is a really cool song. And the electronic part, usually it seemed like when they dropped out to where it was just like a verse with Lejean and like a drum, it kind of hit the same pattern and feel to it each time they did that. So I don't know if there's a way to change it up, but it's still a negative because you kind of like, okay, that was the same as this song.
And this is, 12 tracks long, and most of the songs run tight run time, like, at their shortest, they're like, a little bit over 3 minutes. At their longest, they are maybe a little bit over 4.5 occasionally. But there are definitely some songs that really feel like filler on here. And it's not as though they're like terrible songs. They're just kind of the same ones they've written before, just kind of restructured. And again, this is the kind of thing when you have like formulaic bands that have a dead nuts fucking sound that they're not abandoning. So, you're going to have some filler tracks like namely Everything, Superficial Drug, Holy Water. Like, these are, decent songs, but the songs that really stand out here are the ones where they actually take that formula and add something a little bit different, like a heavier riff, like a stronger syncopation, or like a giant vocal harmony that really soars. And, every chorus in here kind of soars, but, like Everything feels like just platitudes and just, I don't know, like...
It's like, we know they can do it. They've done it so well for so many years. Like, just give us a death metal album.
Yeah, I don't know if I want a death metal. I just want these songs...
Guys would tear it up.
No,
they tear it up.
That's not their thing.
I know it isn't.
But just, yeet the filler. Like, because, this song, even the, lyrics feel kind of stock on it. And, it's just... kind of there. Like, yeah, it's an inoffensive rocker that can be played just about anywhere, maybe minus the giant fuck in the chorus, which I kind of appreciate that. I do like the fact that, every now and then in these very, hook-driven choruses, Lejean will like to throw in a good fuck. And, that's important. It puts a little bit of a, emphasis on that. But with these kind of songs, like, there's always that, sort of argument or, thing that floats around in my head is without... the vocal dynamics, namely between, I would say, Lejean and Clint, and, mostly Lejean, because Lejean just fucking owns. Like, his vocals are still, like, top fucking tier after all these years. Without those vocal dynamics and that, passion, that heart that goes into some of the more dull, kind of just generic songs on here, would they even stand out at all?
Yeah, and maybe not, because his vocals have driven this band for a while. But, part of me says so because I'm such a fan of Morgan's drumming now and so fixated with it. Kind of got a man crush on that dude. He's fucking killer drummer. And, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's just something I always think about. And, I mean, if I'm going to nitpick more, like, they do repeat choruses a lot. That is kind of the formula, but sometimes it feels like it's overkill. But overall, this is actually a pretty decent album. I think this is one of those albums where the songs that I feel are stronger are just the ones that really lift this album up. And then, you know, the more filler tracks or the more like kind of mid-tier ones are still good, but not as memorable. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think I gave the last one 3 stars. And you know what? I mean, they're not surprising me anymore, but at the same time, I kind of just don't want them to. Like, it's just one of those things like, you know, I want a Sevendust album. I got a Sevendust album. I think they do maybe overdo some of the electronic elements, and at some points it does help, and other points it does kind of take away. But it is, you know, at least a semi-different wrinkle, or at least a wrinkle that they're wrinkling more, maybe. I don't know. Because they've had that stuff in the past. But, I mean, there are songs here I will definitely come back to, like the title track, Messenger, and Leave Hell Behind. No Revolution is a heavy banger. The last track, Fence, is just a fucking beast of a song. But yeah, it's another solid offering from Sevendust. And yeah, if you like Sevendust, and I mean, I guess like Breaking Benjamin and shit like that. I don't know. If you just want a better Breaking Benjamin, it's Sevendust. Just get Sevendust.
And I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5, just a little bit above, because I was kind of in the middle there. But the heavier parts of this are like some of the heavier stuff I've heard from Sevendust in a long time, and that gets me really excited. And I mentioned the death metal thing as like kind of a joke, you know, over exaggeration. But I still hold to the fact that if they took the heaviest moments of the last, you know, 5 albums and just kind of focused on that and drove home just the heavy balls out feel, kind of getting more thrashy like they did in Fence, you know, that's got a kind of a thrash punk kind of feel to it. They would just destroy. It would be one of the heaviest damn things to come out, because they're clean, they're crisp, they're precise, they're good musicians. Morgan kills it on drums. The way he makes those things transition, you know, those parts, he fills those drums in so well by still maintaining that pocket, knows those little spots he has to, and really accents it, not by overly doing anything, but fitting the mood and the rhythm of the song and what it needs to go to the next part. Kind of like giving you a little precursor of what's going to happen. That's kind of why I dig his drumming. They're well thought out. So 3.5 out of 5. It had some filler stuff there, yeah, for sure, in the middle. The songs you brought up, I felt some of them could have been, as you say, yeeted. But the heavier parts of this really drove it home for me, which is why I bumped it up a little bit.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com, which is currently under construction, but our Patreon link is also on our channel. But when the site comes back on, hopefully we will have some shirts to show you, and I'm really excited to show you the designs, because it's really fucking cool. But yeah, you will definitely know when it's back online, because we'll definitely do a video showing off the new designs and doing a giveaway for a shirt, because why the fuck not?
Yeah, we may have to do a pre-order, but we'll see what we got working. And we got some live shows coming that we're booking: Bowling Green, Ohio, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. We got Narcotic Wasteland and Embryonic Autopsy out in Fort Wayne, August 13th, coming up soon. Narcotic Wasteland will be in BG the following week. And then I got Yotuma coming out with Cephalic, 10,000 Teeth, Convulsus. They're doing some thing.
It's not Cephalic Carnage, but...
No, Cephalic. Yeah. Cephalic. Toledo guys. Mutilatred will be in Bowling Green, so they're a killer band if you haven't seen them.
You can check out our Facebook. Our Facebook is constantly updated with the show stuff. It should be popping up like almost like right at the top of our Facebook. But yeah, we got that coming up. And of course, thank you guys so much for all the love, all the likes, all the shares. It means the fucking world to us. I know the thank you part of the video where I just say the same shit, but I fucking mean it, because... yeah, you guys are fucking amazing.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been fantastically awesome.
Eclipsed 15,000 subscribers, and for whatever reason, the channel keeps growing. Can't be the content. That's fucking ridiculous.
It's this beautiful mug right here. I know what it is.
Y'all could do better. But no, seriously, thank you so much, and we will catch you later.